Hey, this is Marvin McKenzie, and I just want to come again today and bring another episode on Baptist church history. I'm calling this one Church History 2.1. It's the second lesson out of the second subject that I'm focusing on that has to do with church history. I want to deal today with the subject of the definition of the word church. Before I do that, a couple of comments. So yesterday, there was someone who made a little comment on the episode that I did, and he made this kind of a statement. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He said, well, your version of the Bible supports your idea of church history. And I guess my first thought about that is, well, absolutely. The Bible does support what I believe is church history. Because the fact of the matter is, I'm using the Bible as my authority for church history. I know that there are some other works over the course of history. There have been other things that have been written that have to do with church history and all of that. And I understand that other things have been written, and I understand that we use them, but I also understand that none of them are infallible, and the Bible is. So yeah, the Bible does support my version of church history, and I think it clearly supports my version of church history. Another thing that I kind of wanted to make a comment of that will go along with today's lesson, and in another area, in one of my other sites, I've had several conversations now with people. It has to do with Messianic Judaism, which I believe is the same thing as the Judaizers that the Apostle Paul contended with in his day, and I don't believe it is of God in any way, shape, or form. I believe that all Christians, whether they're Jew or Gentile, should come out of whatever they were in before they became Christians, and they ought to unite with a local church. And one of the arguments that the Messianic Jews, several of them have said to me, is they said, well, you're taking the word church and you're applying it to your concept, a Gentile church, and whereas in fact the Bible doesn't ever teach that at all. The Bible would just say that we're supposed to be in a congregation, and a congregation can be a Jewish congregation in a Jewish Messianic synagogue, or it can be in a church, and it's all the same difference. And you're saying that it's one or the other, and we're saying his argument is that we're saying that it can be either one of those. And then when they really get into it, they'll say, in fact, the truth of the matter is churches are so messed up, that from worldliness and all of that we shouldn't go to churches at all. We ought to all go to a Messianic type congregation or assembly, and those sorts of things. And just want to back up and just say very clearly, the Bible very clearly makes a distinction between the Jewish synagogue and the New Testament church of the Lord Jesus Christ. No question about it that they are two entirely separate entities, and there is no question about it that Jews in the Old Testament, biblical Jews, when they became Christians, united with local churches. They didn't stay in synagogues. They would go to synagogues. They would witness in synagogues. It became a platform for witnessing, but it was not where they worshiped. They worshiped in and assembled in local churches. So I want to talk a little bit about the definition of a church today, and I'm going to use the word ecclesia. I'm going to bring it out and just say ecclesia, which is the Greek word that is translated in the New Testament for church. And it is a word that just means, it means a calling out. It is a specific, I just want to find this up. It literally means a calling out. And it was originally used for assemblies other than religious ones. It was a political gathering, for instance, that would have been a political gathering, could have been called an ecclesia in those days. And right away that I learned that that a church, in order to be a church, has to be assembled. It's not something that exists out there theoretically. A church is a church when it is assembly, when it's assembled, when it's gathered together. And so a Greek city in those days, and politically, even before we're talking about a church in the sense of spiritual, in the spiritual sense, in those days, a group of citizens would be elected or whatever. They're going to be in a position of authority in their city, and they would be called out from among the other citizens of the city to become a part of an assembly. And when they assembled, That was the ecclesia. And ecclesia was when those citizens who were qualified members of a particular organization assembled together to do whatever work and whatever purpose they had. And over the course of time, this word began to be more and more, less and less used for worldly things, and more used for spiritual things, until we've come to the place now where we only think of church as being a local group of Christian believers. So the definition that has developed over the course of time, when we think about an ecclesia or a local church, a definition would be this: an assembled group of baptized believers united for the common purpose of Christian edification and for the Great Commission. A church is assembled. It has members who are all baptized the same way, and it's got a purpose, and that purpose is the Great Commission. No other purpose. We don't write our own. Years ago, I heard this phrase, just love it, phrase that a church is executive, not legislative. So we come to execute what God has already told us to do, not to legislate what it is that we want to do. And many churches today are getting messed up in that sense, thinking that it's up to them to write their own mission statement. No, we've got a mission statement, and that is the Great Commission. That's our mission statement every time. And so 3 keys to the definition of an ecclesia, of a local church. Number 1, it's qualified members. They're qualified, not just saved, but they're baptized. Number 2, they are assembled members, not just members who are out there somewhere, but members who have gathered together in a meeting. Number 3, they are united members, and they have they are united around a common purpose and a common cause. They don't get together and everyone says, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do the other thing. No, we've got a common cause, and that cause is to accomplish and to perform the Great Commission as the Lord Jesus Christ gave us. I'm Marvin McKenzie. I'm the pastor of Bible Baptist Church in Puyallup, Washington. You can find us on the web at www.puyallupbaptistchurch.com. I'd also like to encourage you, you can go to Amazon.com and find my book that's called Roots Matter, a Baptist's Interpretation of Church History. I'd like to encourage you to buy that book. I'm using it as my outline, and I'll be teaching it pretty closely, going to stick with it pretty closely, but there'll be some other things that come up from time to time as well. I'd encourage you to pick up the book and read it, and it'd be wonderful. It's online. You'd find it as an ebook, and very inexpensive on Amazon.com. Also, I want to encourage you, if you would, to take a look at our church's fundraising program called Dubly, and you can find it at www.dubly.com/M, capital M, 04, capital V, capital B. Follow me if you would, and share this. You can even share it after we're offline, and get some others to come online and learn these Baptist history lessons as well.